Good evening. The Labour leadership election, under rules dreamt up by Ed Miliband, is now beset by problems over whom among registered voters is eligible to vote and who is not, the criteria for that decision and who actually makes that decision. As constituency officials start to trawl through lists of voters old and new, people are being picked out and disbarred. Newsnight has seen new numbers which shine a light on the profile of some of those new supporters. Here's James Clayton.
Labour's rose has, at least technically, been blossoming for the last 3 months. An unprecedented 400,000 people recently signed up to vote in their leadership contest. Labour, however, has a thorny problem. How do you verify them all? Some of the newly registered voters have been accused of infiltrating the party, of not being genuine Labour supporters, mainly to vote for the far-left candidate, Jeremy Corbyn. Newsnight can reveal tonight exactly why Labour HQ is so concerned about this problem.
I create new tool called Contact Creator.
This is an advert for Labour's Contact Creator. It's an electronic system that supplies data on how people said they would vote when asked by Labour campaigners before the 2015 general election. Several Labour MPs have cross-referenced newly signed up Labour voters with this database. First up is the constituency of Mitcham and Morden in South London. Out of 531 new members, Labour had contacted 368 before the election. Of those, 118 said they were either going to vote for another party or wouldn't commit to voting Labour. That's about 32% of all new registered voters that Labour had data on. And the pattern is repeated. In Simon Danshuk's Rochdale, the same process found 25% did not intend to vote Labour. That figure rises to 30% when just looking at registered supporters, those who paid £3 to vote. And in one London constituency, which we've been asked not to name, the total figure of newly registered voters who didn't say they would vote Labour just a few months ago is a mighty 40%. Now, it's worth mentioning that none of the constituencies that we've spoken to have MPs that actually support Jeremy Corbyn, but there is a very interesting pattern that has emerged. Many people thought that Conservative voters might infiltrate the process by paying £3 and essentially voting for Corbyn. Well, that doesn't seem to be happening. There are almost no Conservative voters on the database. However, there are plenty of people who voted Green, or at least said they would vote Green or Liberal Democrats, and have now signed up to vote in this leadership race.
As with any door knocking or phone bank data, samples can be wrong anyway, so we need to be a bit careful about being overly officious, if you like. The party's doing a huge amount to try and make sure that those who actively campaigned against us are weeded out. There might be people who voted Lib Dem who have actually, now we've won, want to be part of us and want to make sure that I win again in 2020, and I'm happy to have them on board.
The Labour Party is so worried about these new voters that last week party lawyers suggested an extra verification process. The idea was to ask voters who'd said they'd supported another party on Contact Creator to confirm it supported the party's values and aims. No response would mean no vote. The idea was voted down, however, in committee. Critics say that this will make the party even more open to legal challenge if the results are close, particularly as today some newly registered voters were told they weren't allowed to vote. Some felt unjustly. #Labour purge is even trending on Twitter. Any thought that Labour's voting saga was going to end anytime soon are sorely mistaken.
James Clayton, well, with me now are Pete Sinclair, who registered as a Labour supporter but hasn't been allowed to vote, and Ben Bradshaw, who is running for Deputy Leader. Good evening. Pete Sinclair, your email said, "We have reason to believe you do not support the aims and values of the Labour Party, or you're a supporter of an organisation opposed to the Labour Party, and therefore we are rejecting your application." What did you think when you got this?
Well, I was appalled, frankly. I voted Labour from 1979, when I was old enough to vote, until the Iraq War, when I felt I could no longer support a party that with a leader who invaded a country illegally. And at the last election, I had the luxury of living in a safe Labour seat Greenwich, which remained Labour, as I knew it would, and under our ridiculous electoral system, most people's votes don't really count, so I tactically voted for the Green Party. I made it absolutely clear on Twitter, which I presume is what Labour have been poring over to discern my aims and values. I voted Green in order to protest and to tell the Labour Party there are people like me whose votes you cannot take for granted. I am not pro-austerity, I am not pro-Trident, I am not pro-tuition fees, but I equally made absolutely clear on Twitter I want every Green Party supporter in a Labour-Tory marginal to vote Labour. And furthermore, I donated to Labour's election campaign because it was so important to me that they beat the Tories.
So why do you think that you're simply unsuitable?
You'd have to ask Ben. I don't know why you don't want people who voted Green at the election to come back to Labour.
Would you call yourself a Labour supporter or a Jeremy Corbyn supporter?
I would call myself a Jeremy Corbyn supporter, but Jeremy Corbyn is running to lead the Labour Party. So if Jeremy Corbyn is leading the Labour Party, I will be a Labour Party supporter. I will enthusiastically campaign for Labour, and if Jeremy is the leader, then I may well join Labour.
But it's fair to say that if Jeremy Corbyn wasn't the ticket, you'd be voting Green again.
Labour would have to work really hard to win me back. The thing that annoys me, Ben, is if I had voted Tory in May and I then said, oh, Liz Kendall has really impressed me with her economic sensibleness, and I'm coming over to the Labour Party, I think you'd have welcomed me with open arms. Well, this seems to be the case. You're trying to win voters from other parties. How are Labour going to win the election if they don't convince voters?
Well, let's put that hypothetical question. If Pete had come from a Tory vote last time round and you knew that, would he have been barred?
Firstly, Kirsty, I'm not here to defend the system. Secondly, voting for another party is not a bar to voting in this leadership election. The rules are quite clear about that. What the party is trying to do, quite properly in my view, is to test the integrity of the system.
But Pete Sinclair has been a long-time Labour voter, went away because of the Iraq War, voted Green, and now has been disbarred.
We don't know what the reasons were that the people who are checking Pete's record made for barring him, and if he feels
there's not a standard test?
If he feels that it's unfair, he can appeal. There's an appeals process.
But that appeals process is not going to be there. Hang on. That appeals process is not going to be finished by the time the leadership election.
Your whole film has suggested that voting for another party bars people under the system. It does not. We welcome these converts. We welcome people who are genuinely Labour. But the party has to satisfy not only the public, but party members, long-standing party members. I have people in my constituency, lifelong Tories, who have deliberately signed up as registered supporters to vote in this leadership election. That's not acceptable for any political party.
There's either a kind of standard test, or it could be it could look like a complete purge of people that actually they're not very happy with his views on certain things, so Pete Sinclair can't vote.
The standard test is you have to support the values and the aims of the Labour Party.
You have to stand in front of people and interrogate them.
No, but if there is doubt over any of these applicants, including lifelong Conservatives in my own constituency, people who voted BNP, Green all of their lives, who have campaigned against Labour candidates, we are entitled to ask them the question, are you genuine or are you just coming into the party?
Well, you're going to have a big job to do that through all these different supporters and all these different constituencies, and you'll never do it by the time of the election.
That's the point I'm making, and that's the concern.
So it's a rubbish system.
The concern I have is different from Pete's. The concern I have is that most parties are not like mine. They don't have the capacity to check. They don't have organisation. They don't have the voting records. Do
you accept that this is actually a rubbish system, which was brought in by Ed Miliband, who, you worked for Ed Miliband, with Tony Blair's support, indeed, in order to expand the party.
I don't remember the Tony.
Big mistake. Big mistake.
But look, I'm not going to criticise Ed and the system for the reasons he brought them in, which for the best of intentions. But I think any sensible observer and any sensible Labour Party member who's been in the party for a very long time, looking at this system, saying we're going to have to have another.
How do you feel about being checked up on?
I don't mind them checking up on me. If I was a member of the Green Party or a rival political party, then of course I shouldn't be taking part in the Labour.
But you're not a member of the Green Party.
I'm not a member of the Green Party. And as I say, I'm so sad that this internal fight is happening instead of getting behind the most electable candidate, which is Jeremy Corbyn. All the polls show Jeremy Corbyn is reaching out to the 12 million people who didn't vote in the last election, to the 1.2 million who voted Green, to the 4 million who voted UKIP. These are the people Labour need to win back. Why are you so focused on the Tories? on trying to win 1 million Tories back. There's so many more voters, and you can tap into that.
But you're going to the deputy leadership. You're going to be
because I'm on the safe Tory seat, and we can't get a Labour government back without winning seats back from the Conservatives and vote.
So therefore, in fact, the party has to tack right, not left.
No, the party has to have a broader appeal. You know, our appeal at the election, Kirsty, was too narrow. The answer is not to have a more narrow appeal, either on the left or on the right. It's to have a broader appeal from where Labour governments have always been elected, a broad coalition.
So you're going to contest this?
I certainly will. I want my vote.
You want your vote. Thank you both very much indeed.